Good day, everyone, and welcome to the show. On behalf of Disciple City, I'm Todd Carlton, and this is the Toddcast. Friends, we are now on YouTube, and previous episodes are being uploaded all the time. Go on and check that out. We are also on Instagram at the Toddcast_DAC, where you can find out all the information about who's coming on and some behind-the-scenes clips. Don't forget to download the United Hive app, where you can share your gospel shares, your interactions with people, stories of baptisms, deliverance, salvations, and all that is available on all the platforms at the United Hive app. This app is being used worldwide, and it will greatly encourage you every single day. Friends, we are still in the midst of the 100K harvest here in Canada, with the goal of seeing 100,000 Canadians hear the gospel face to face. And we have cities participating from Corner Brook, Newfoundland to Nanaimo, BC. And you can check out all that information at the 100kharvest.ca. And friends, of course, as always, to learn more about how you can become equipped to share the gospel and become a disciple-making disciple, check out our website at discipleacity.ca. And I'd love to hear from you about this podcast, and you can reach out to me at information at discipleacity.ca. Speaking of sharing the gospel with people, my guest today is doing that same thing and has been doing that actively for 20 years. He's the lead pastor of a church called Habra Christian Church in LA, California. He used to be an engineer and felt the call to leave that to pursue ministry and to share the gospel and bring the gospel to people every day. He's doing that online on multiple platforms, and he also has been doing that with an Uber run, sharing the gospel with people who hop in the car with him. Please welcome Pastor Jason Kim.
Hi, it's
hey, my
really
friend.
Good to be it's good to be on the podcast.
It's great to have you, man. Thank you so much. Glad you could be here with us today. And as I was saying just before we hopped on, man, been following you for quite a long time. It's really encouraged me. I just love to see this kind of stuff going on all over the world.
Great. And I love the mission of the podcast, and I agree with it.
Amen. Jason, I'd really, especially the Uber stuff, but all the stuff you've been doing and how you got on social media and all that kind of stuff, and your passion to share that. But can you just give us some background of even going way back to when you were a kid, where you grew up, and if you grew up in the church and all that?
Yeah, I'm a typical grow up in the church kid. My mom forced all of us to go to church since I was young. Even my atheist dad was forced to go to church, and he would sleep during the sermons, but he had no say in it. He had to just go with the rest of us. And so I grew up in church, a very typical growing up in church story, but I didn't meet Jesus until I was in high school, late in high school, because to me, growing up, I mean, I don't blame the church. I had a good gospel-centered church, but growing up, I always thought the gospel was about just being a good kid. If you're a good kid, you go to heaven. If you're a bad kid, you go to hell. And I don't know where I got this false gospel. Not from my church, but, I grew up thinking, you know what, just be a good person. And I knew about Jesus. I knew about all these other things. But so I grew up very religious in a way that I tried to keep up with the rules, try to keep up with being a Christian, whatever that meant, until I was faced with the trueness of the gospel. I guess I went through my rebellious stage in high school. I got into street racing, and with that comes a crowd that is not very godly. I got into drugs and alcohol, not truly addicted, but that was the scene where I was playing in as a street racer. And then when I pretty much hit rock bottom, so to speak, I was encountered with who God was. I remember trying to reach out to God or to pray to God, and I realized I don't know who I'm talking to. Who is this God that I'm talking to? And at that point, I felt like I had crossed the line because, if you're a good kid, you go to heaven. If you're a bad kid, you go to hell. And I crossed the line. I'm not a good kid anymore. I grew up as a good kid. I had good grades. I had everything going for me. And now I'm on the other side, and now what am I going to do? And then when I tried to reach out to God, I felt like, who is this person? And I realized I didn't really know God. And so that's the step that I took to say, God, I want to start knowing you the right way. I want to start knowing you now. I can't even claim that I knew you for the past 10 years. Now let's start off with not a clean slate, but let me start the first step.
How did you, how did your family navigate all this at that time? Like, were you still going to attending church and sort of just living the street racing and all that kind of stuff, or had you stepped away from it?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, I tried to hold on to both worlds. I mean, my world was I was a Christian boy, I was a church kid, but then the other side of me, the double life was a street racing. And sooner or later, it's going to catch up and the worlds will collide. And when that started happening, it was so hard to hold on to both. People at school started realizing, hey, this Christian kid is not so Christian. I saw this guy at a weed party last night. So I became known as a hypocrite. I didn't want to shame my religion. I cared about how people looked at God. And yet I was becoming the greatest hypocrite. And I hated who I was becoming. Yet I didn't know what to do as a teenager, trying to hold on to all these things that I thought was real. And yet, as the worlds collided, my friends turned their backs on me for good reason. My parents kicked me out of the house. And my church, I couldn't keep going because I felt like if I went, I'm a hypocrite, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So, Jason, what was the family dynamics like with your mom and dad at that time? Like, if your dad was an atheist, but your mom and that was having him go to church at that time, and when you got kicked out, what did that look like?
Well, growing up in a Korean culture family, a lot of the immigrant families in the Korean, community, they rely on church for community. So going to church was part of being part of the Korean community when I was growing up in the 90s. And so it wasn't so much religious as it was also cultural. So the whole family had to go. So it was like the thing to do. It wasn't very spiritual in a way. We didn't talk about Jesus at all in the house. And so it didn't become a source of great conflict with my dad because it was just a Korean thing in a way to go to church on Sundays. Okay, I'll drag myself out of bed. But it only became a conflict when I did turn to Christ in high school. I started reading my Bible. I started getting really into God. That's what bothered my atheist dad. So I don't know what kind of conflicts, if there were any conflicts between my dad and my mom, because it wasn't really a spiritual thing to go to church every Sunday in that way. It was more like that's what we do. That's what we did. We never talked about Jesus at home. And so it only became a conflict with my dad, me and my dad, only when I committed to Christ.
And so when you got kicked out, like, man, where did you go? What did that look like for you?
Well, that was in the middle of where my worlds were colliding. I came home completely drunk around 2 a.m. Didn't expect my parents to be up waiting for me, but they were waiting up for me because they had found my report cards that I had hidden away. And they had seen what kind of grades I was starting to get. I mean, I was a straight A kid. I was bound for one of those top schools. And when they saw my grades, I was like, they were very shocked more at that. And seeing me coming home drunk, my mom just lost it, yelled at me, told me to get out of the house. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't really tell my friends what was happening. I just called up one of my friends, said, hey, could I sleep over? He didn't ask a lot of questions, and I didn't want to tell him about what was happening. So that was when I was hitting rock bottom.
So what was it like? What was the actual encounter or time where Jesus became real to you, where this part of your life sort of flipped right over?
And so I'd gone to school. I caused a scene in class. I was told to see the principal. There was a yelling match in class. And whenever I tried to avoid my problems, such as meeting the principal, I would go there's a mountain up in LA called the Griffith Park. And that's where the observatory is. And I would go up on that mountain, just almost self-pity, feeling sorry for myself, feeling like there's no my street racer friends are not really my friends. They're not that I'd grown up with. I mean, They turned their backs on me. I felt like I had nobody. My parents had just kicked me out. School was not going well either. And so once again, I went up on that mountain to feel sorry for myself, to get away from everything. And I remember yelling at God, yelling and screaming, God, I don't deserve this. I've been going to church all my life. I've been a good kid. You're supposed to keep your end of the deal. If I'm a good kid, you're supposed to bless me and make my life perfect. God, I held up my end. What about you? And as I was yelling at God, I realized I don't know this God that I'm yelling at. I was really frustrated and angry. And I remember distinctly, it started to rain. And you know how when it starts to rain, the raindrops gather on the windshield. So I'm in my car yelling at God. And you know how the raindrops gather on the windshield and starts coming down. And as they were coming down, I felt like, I don't know why, but I felt like those were God's tears and he was crying for me. And I cut through my own lies and I said, God, it's not your fault. I did all this to myself. The drugs, the drinking, what I did to my friends, my parents, it's all on me. And that's when I realized that this God that I'm talking to, I don't know this God. I thought I knew God because I had gone to church all my life, but I didn't know this God. And I said, God, I wish I'd never known you my entire life, and I want to start knowing you now the right way. And that's when I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Wow. And no, my problems didn't go away the next day. I still had to see the principal. I still had to go back to my parents. It took a while for me to get back with my friends, my real friends. And it took a while to quit drugs and drinking and all that too. So it was a process. But I knew this time something was different. I wouldn't have to go through any of these by myself because this time God was with me.
Come on. Wow. Come on. That's so good. That's so good. Funny that you mentioned that you had this encounter in a car. I came to faith in a vehicle as well by myself. Those times, right, where you process a lot of things and you can really think of where you're at in life. Hey.
Yeah.
So, yes, sometimes people are set free from all that stuff instantly. Sometimes it's a process and whatnot. So as you went through that process, take us through the next significant, before you got into a career of engineering, the next sort of significant move with you and the Lord from that point.
I guess from that point in high school, I committed to reading the Bible every day. It was almost like I had no choice because I didn't have friends to hang out with. I was going back to school, working on my grades. But, as a senior in high school, my grades didn't matter that much more. And so I didn't really have much to do. I didn't have hangout time. I didn't have anything. So I just read the Bible every day, started with 1 chapter, then 2, then 4, then 10 chapters a day. 16 chapters, 30 chapters a day. And I finished reading the Bible. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start reading again. And before the end of that year, I had finished reading the Bible 4 times. And that really helped me to grow in my faith. I wasn't distracted by the world or my friends or any other activity, good or bad. I just focused on reading the Bible and build up a real relationship with Jesus Christ. And that really fueled my path through college and afterwards. And so, I was set on being an engineer, and I was committed to being an active Christian. I was thinking about maybe I could become a missionary, an engineering missionary in the future. So I looked up things of that area. And so I graduated college, became an engineer. And of course, as every Christian should do, I was serving at church. And for me, serving at church meant teaching Bible study. And I was serving at the youth group, and one day their youth pastor left. And so there was no one really to take his place. And so I said, I'll help out as the youth pastor in a way. Although I'm not a pastor, I'll just do what I can. And so I started preaching on Sunday mornings about God. And so because I wanted to know what I'm talking about, I started going to seminary at night, like night school seminary. Fuller had an extension there. So I started taking classes but I was still committed to be an engineer. I mean, that's who God called me to be. And I remember I got a promotion at work, which meant more responsibilities, more people under me, and more time in the office. And I knew I couldn't really serve at church as much anymore. I mean, I had to be a committed worker, be faithful in where God has placed me. And so I was praying, God, how do I tell my church that I got to step down from all my duties? I'll still be an active member, but I can't do this ministry thing. I mean, it's not me. That's not me. That's not who I am. But the more I prayed about letting go of this side and embracing more of my engineering career, I felt God was telling me to quit my job. And I felt like, no, that can't be God. Because that's not who I am. I'm the guy I'm more comfortable with numbers and calculations and I'm comfortable with my cubicle and my desk and my office. I mean, that's who I am. I'm not the guy who's out in the front preaching, I'll do what I can, but that's not who I am. And, to make a long story short, I said no to God. I said no to God for 6 months. And I have friends who have great testimonies that I gave up everything for Jesus. I just left it the next day. But that wasn't me. I loved my paycheck. I loved what I was doing. And I love God too. But I said no to God. But what happened was, I didn't know this would happen. Every time I got my paycheck, every time I went into work, I felt guilty. I felt like this is almost blood money because I wasn't doing what God was calling me to do. Before, life was great, but knowing that God wanted me to do something and I was saying no to God, those 6 months, I was miserable. So it's not with joy and pride that I say, oh, I gave up everything. No, I was so miserable. I had no choice. I went up to my boss and gave him a 2-week notice. And he's a Christian and he knew what I was going through. I had been struggling. I want to stay with engineering, but I feel like God's calling me to ministry. Where should I go? And then my boss tells me, you just got to follow your heart. And I said, my heart's telling me to quit. And my boss says, I think with your head. You're an engineer. But eventually I said no. And then, my coworkers threw this nice party for me at this Mexican restaurant. And at the end, we were saying our goodbyes. My boss gives me a gift, a parting gift. And I thought maybe it's a fat check. I don't know. I open it up. It's a blue Bible. Let me get it for you, actually.
That's awesome.
It was this blue Bible with my name on it. It was a final confirmation that God was leading me into ministry. And this is the same Bible that I've taken all over the world to preach the gospel.
Wow. So when you quit that job, did you quit and like step into a lead pastor role, or did you just quit and have time to focus more on what you were currently doing at the church?
So I didn't know what God was wanting me to do. So I decided to go all in into ministry, which meant going all in into seminary. My seminary was near San Diego, which means I had to leave my church, which was up in Northern California. So I moved down to Southern California. Well, I grew up in LA, but now I'm close to San Diego for my seminary, Westminster Seminary. And so I've committed full time to learning. And also I joined the church part time as a youth minister. And so I was doing that for a while, and I thought maybe I didn't know what God wanted me to do. So because I'm in youth ministry, I committed all the way into youth ministry for many years.
So this is really actually a great example of obedience, right? Of like hearing God's voice or direction for you, but at the same time not knowing what you're stepping into, but knowing it so well, or, knowing his voice so well that you just stepped into it. Because there's a lot of uncertainty there if you're now giving up a career, and obviously a very good one, and going into school and not knowing that there's something there on the other side for you. Like in the world,
I've learned that God rarely gives you the full big picture. He doesn't outline who you're gonna marry and what you're gonna do 10 years from now, but he will tell you what the next step is. And that's all I had to focus on. What is the next step? Maybe I don't know what 5 steps later. As an engineer background, I want to know what the next 5 steps. But God, I had to learn, and it was hard. I had to learn just the next step. Just follow the next step, be faithful to that, and God will lead you to the one after.
Yeah. Okay, so you do seminary, and then take us to where, I don't know if there was other churches in before, but the church that you're at currently, where you became the lead pastor there, like take us up to that there.
Well, so I was doing a lot of different things at the time. So as a in being in youth ministry, I became a youth speaker. I just started traveling around, and being in youth ministry, kids have a lot of questions, and so instead of answering the same question again and again, I thought, I'm an engineer. Let's make this into a process. So I decided I'm going to start making videos, so I don't have to keep answering the same question over and over again about how do you know Jesus resurrected? How do you know the Bible is true? So many questions that the teenagers have. So I thought, okay, just make videos and just do it once, and I don't have to keep answering the same old question. That's the same time when when YouTube started. So I started, okay, I'll put it up on YouTube, give people the links when these teenagers ask me these questions. And so I started doing that. And that's how I started the YouTube channel, Pastor Jason Answers. That's why it's to answer all these different questions. And so I started doing interviews, started doing, so what's the difference between Catholics and Christians? So I would interview a Catholic priest. And so that's how things came about. And so, slowly, that's how my name got out there, that this is what I'm doing. And this was the beginning years of YouTube when not many people were really into YouTube yet. And so I took advantage of that. And so as the years progressed, I'm still in youth ministry. And now I'm becoming a dad. I got married. I'm having a kid. And if you know, having that first kid, man, it really sucks the life out of you in a way that like your time is gone. You have no more free time. And your ministry time is, wow.
Yeah.
So I was like a zombie with my first kid, like barely getting enough sleep. And then guess what? My wife got pregnant again. So I'm like, okay, one was hard enough. Two? So we decided we're going to move. We were doing ministry in San Jose for about 9 years, youth ministry. And so we decided we're going to move back down to where our parents are to help us out, back down to Los Angeles. And that's when we moved back down. And I decided, you know what? Instead of jumping back into ministry, I'm going to just do part-time youth ministry, focus on raising my kids, helping out my wife. And so that's when I got into Uber. Uber is very flexible. That was just starting. I was one of the first 1,000 drivers, I would say. And so I started just doing that. But what's interesting was as a Christian, as someone in ministry, you want to tell people about Jesus. And so I started talking about Jesus in the Uber rides, just as a natural way of talking with people, just helping out people. And that's how I see evangelism, by the way. Evangelism, I don't see it as spreading my religion or trying to make people see what I see, but I see evangelism simply as helping other people. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to spread my religion or anything like that, nothing religious. It's just, hey, I just want to help you. If you don't want my help, I'm not going to give it to you, but everybody, I think, needs this help. And so I'm just helping people. That's my attitude. I'm just trying to help people. I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all. I'm not trying to spread a religion. I'm just trying to help people. And that's what I was doing on Uber, just trying to talk to people and, hey, you're going through something. Hey, Jesus is the solution. I'm just trying to help you. Yeah. And so doing that, it became very fun. I started meeting people I wouldn't normally meet at church, people who wouldn't normally walk into a church and start talking about God. Because most people I meet at church, they're either already Christians or know this Christian thing. But the people I would meet in Uber were people, sometimes they were drunk. They were coming from like very unchurched backgrounds. And so also hearing their perspectives also helped me to come out of my Christian bubble in a way. Because all my coworkers were Christian, everybody I talked to were Christian, all my friends were Christian. So where do I find the other perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that became a fun thing. And then something, I would say miraculous happened. I was just another day, I was taking another guy home. And as usual, I talked about Jesus. And then at the end of our ride, or near the end of our ride, he said, hey, I want to be a Christian. I'm like, okay, yeah, one day maybe you can. No, he said, no, right now. I want to be a Christian right now. And he thought, can we stop by a church and get baptized or something? And I said, no, you don't have to walk into a church to become a Christian. And I shared the gospel again, just in case he missed anything. And then I said, would you pray with me? And then we prayed together and he received Jesus into his heart. That right there in my car. And then came the awkward moment. What do I do? Do I hug him? Do I hug him outside the car? Do I still charge him for the ride? I still charged him for the ride. But what was amazing to me is I had never thought that was possible. Wow, somebody calls an Uber, gets into a car, rides, and at the end of the ride, he's a changed man. He's a Christian now. I'm like, this is insane. What? What just happened? And I thought, this is incredible. I never thought this could happen. And that was the beginning of Uber evangelism. That's when I got, okay, this is an opportunity. This is a harvest field. And I started making videos and putting it online, and other people would see it and be inspired and call me up and say, hey, how do I do that? And so I started training people, and it was a ride in a way. It's like, wow, this is incredible that God could use something like Uber to bring the gospel to people.
So all these things sort of happened all along the same time, right? Like you grew in your ministry and became a pastor, you got married, you had kids, and you started this YouTube channel to help the teenagers.
Right.
And the Uber thing, you obviously didn't film it at first. Was it after this salvation that you began?
Yes, after the salvation. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, how far were you from the ocean? You should have raced him over to the ocean and baptized him.
So it's been incredible seeing all that.
So after that, did you just combine the videos of your Uber rides into your YouTube channel, or how did that all develop?
And so it wasn't like the next day that I did this, and I thought, this is amazing. This could turn into something. So I started driving for Uber more intentionally in order to share the gospel. And it wasn't always, there were some bumps in the road. Sometimes I was stumped. I'm not an extrovert or people person, and I had to get in the mode of how do I start conversations, and so I even made a video about how to start conversations about God with strangers. But so I had to learn all that because I wasn't a natural. I don't have the gift of evangelism, but that doesn't mean I can't evangelize. And so I had to learn these things by practicing and just talking to more people. And that's when I started to, okay, I think maybe I should put this up online. So not expecting much out of it, I started buying some cameras, put them in my cars and things like that. And that's when it grew into something that people were seeing what I was doing and thinking, wow, that's possible. Never thought that was possible either. And then, so that's how it grew into what it is now.
You know, that's very interesting. That's one of the things that we do too as Disciple of City, right? As part of our training is helping people. How do you start spiritual conversation? And a very profound thing that you said there, bro, is you don't have the gift of evangelism, but you know you're called to evangelize.
Right.
Right. And as Christians, we all are. Hey.
Yeah. And I do know I have friends who do have the gift of evangelism, and it's great. But there are more people like me who don't have that gift. But God calls not just the gifted to go preach the gospel. He called all of us. And whether we're introverts or extroverts, whether we're quiet or shy or loud, it doesn't matter. We all, if we have the gospel, we're called to share it and to go out and share it. And so I'm glad I'm an introvert, that I don't have the gift of evangelism, to show people, hey, I'm just being obedient to what God wants me to do. And in my way, I'm going to share the gospel. I might not be doing the same way that Billy Graham would do it, or that loud guy might do it, but this is the way I'm doing it, and God is using me too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you posted on this too. The recent passing of Charlie Kirk, has really, from what I'm seeing on social media, and I'm sure you as well, has really encouraged Christians to do just that, right? Just to share their faith as he did in amongst those debates and the things that he did.
Yeah, I see sparks of revival right now because people are waking up, because they see the example of someone who stood for the gospel and died for it. I mean, I didn't know that would have such a huge impact as I'm seeing right now on social media and everywhere else, that people have. It's like seeing an example up in your face. I mean, we've heard stories of martyrdom, Christians who've been persecuted. Even last year, I would put up videos of Christians who are being persecuted, but it would get very low views compared to my other videos. The persecution videos of Christians who are being persecuted in the Middle East and North Korea, it got very low views. But after Charlie Kirk, because they saw it live, it was right in front of them. It was very contemporary. It was not 2,000 miles away. It wasn't 30 years ago. It's today, right now. A man stood for God and died for God. And that sparked a courage, fire that, wow, it's spreading across the world.
Yeah, all over the world. That's so true. It's interesting, right? Because there was a lot of reports of mass slaughter of Christians in Syria several months ago that seemed to go nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. which is terrible. So we just pray that fire remains with people as time passes. Because a lot of times, like you said, we see these things, but my wife and I were talking today that something's shifted. Like, there might be a little dwindling, but something shifted and things will never be the same.
Yeah, I think it's a watershed moment. And I think as Christians right now, including all your listeners, this is the time, this is the opportunity right now to strike while the iron is hot, while people's eyes are open, their hearts are soft. I think right now, your friends at work will not be offended when you bring up the gospel in a loving way. Before, they'll brush it off. Oh, you religious nut. But now, I think they're willing to listen. So it's not going to last forever. Right now is the time that we can go into our workplaces, go into the public square, go into our friends and say, hey, let me tell you about what this man, Charlie Kirk, died for.
Yeah. And in sharing it in love and respect as he did.
Of course, yeah.
And
I'm going to his funeral this Sunday, the Charlie Kirk funeral. Now I'm going to see how that fire is continuing to spread to more people.
Yeah, that's going to be so huge, I imagine.
Yeah.
And something that I just want to give you credit for, something that I respect in the stuff that I've seen you do, because obviously I, like probably lots, watch many people share their faith online or publicly, and very few people do it, in my opinion, well. A lot of aggressive fire and brimstone type stuff. And I mean, hey, if they feel they're called to do that, then that's what they're called to do. And I'm sure there are some people around that it might impact. But I really love how in your Uber ride, say, for example, of how much like Charlie did, right? You're listening to people.
Yeah.
And hearing where they're at and giving them an opportunity to respond. And then obviously you're guided by the Holy Spirit and sort of taking those conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to listen to them first to gain the right for them to listen to us. And I'm not gonna criticize pastors or preachers who do it they're very aggressive in a way. Sometimes I get criticized in that I'm not aggressive enough, and that may be true too. And there are times in which, because of my time limit of the Uber ride, there are times when I didn't even get to share the gospel, and I'll get criticized for that. You didn't get to tell them about Jesus. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to help them get to the next step. And I may not share the gospel. They may not be led to Christ. We might not have that altar call moment, but I'm just being led by the Spirit, and I may just be the one step, and God's going to use somebody else for the next step.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? If we set a target, like every Uber ride that you have to share the gospel, then at that point, you're not being genuine and loving, right? You're trying to hit a target. You're trying to hit a goal. Is there a story of something now? Are you still doing that regularly?
Off and on.
Yeah.
I did it just yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. So, what would be the most recent Uber ride that you had story that would really stand out to you?
Well, one of my recent ones, I was doing my regular pickups, and I would have to say half the rides don't even get to the gospel, don't even get to conversations. I don't know if you've been on Uber many times, but sometimes I could tell when a passenger gets in on the phone or he's busy, and I could tell he doesn't want to talk. And so half the rides or more don't even have conversations. And you can understand how people just want to get into an Uber. Just don't talk to me. I just want to get to my destination. And I respect that. I'm not going to get into their comfort zone and say, hey, we got to talk. No, I'm not going to force them into something that I'm not helping them in that way. And so, yeah, people might criticize me. I got to reach every soul. No. God will open doors for me. And that's one of my prayers before I get into the Uber evangelism mode. I say, God, send the people that you've already prepared. Not the atheist who just wants to get into a debate, but people who you've already been preparing. And once I picked up this girl, she was going to the airport. Good. That's a long ride. That's at least an hour conversation. So that's good. And I always ask for permission. Hey, can we talk about religious things, about life? And a lot of them would say, yeah, sure. And so, yes, it's good. We're going to have a conversation. And so before I had prayed, God, send me people that you've been preparing. You've been working on them. And God, use me to bring in the harvest. I want to be that guy. And so sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. And I was talking to this girl about spiritual things, and she's told me, that's so crazy. Just last week, I was talking to my friend about these very things, about God, about Jesus. Yeah, I'm thinking, of course, God was preparing you for our conversation right now. And we were talking about God, and like many people today, she knows about church. She's gone into church once or twice. She has nothing against church or any other religion, which is very accepting in the US. It's kind of like that kind of mode. Like we like Buddhism, we like Christianity. Like not many haters in real life. On social media, you see a lot of haters. I hate Christianity and atheists, but the more I talk to people on college campuses and on Uber rides, many people are open to religion. I see very few atheists, actually. They're more into Buddhism, into New Age, into religion. They may not be open to organized religion called Christianity, but religious talks, they're very open to that. And so she was that, and we were talking about, I tried to find places of connection where we could start talking about. And so I always ask about, what do you think happens after we die? Is there a nirvana? Is there a heaven or hell? Are we just chemicals? So we talk about that. That's another point of connection. We talk about what she believes in about certain things. And so she actually happened to be a big YouTuber with millions of followers. And I didn't even know about that. Her name is Hannah Stocking. And so it was a very genuine conversation. She had questions about God that I was able to answer, and things that could come together. She did have a boyfriend who was a Christian, and so encouraging her to talk with him and to go to his church to check out the gospel. I did get to share the gospel and answer her questions. And at the end, we got to pray together, which is great, not only for her, but also for her followers who have seen clips of her doing, prayer, asking questions, and genuinely interested in the gospel.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so true. Hey, people, I tell people that too. People are actually open. Like they're so open and they're looking for something and they're trying to find it in other religions or in New Age or in all these things or the universe. That's a very popular thing to say up here. Anyway,
You're right. You're right.
The universe.
And then whenever they talk about karma or reincarnation or the universe, I ask them, so are you Buddhist? But they may claim certain things, but nobody really knows Buddhism. I've studied Buddhism, but they like to pick and choose from here and there. And one of my jobs, I believe, is to take off the misconceptions. I mean, people have ideas about organized Christianity, that they're hateful, that they hate gays, and they're very religious and very strict. They have that image that's pushed on them by the media. So especially when I go to West Hollywood, which is full of a lot of LGBTQ, one of my jobs is to be friendly, make connections with them. And when I even tell them that I'm a pastor, they're genuinely shocked. They've actually told me, I can't believe you're a pastor and you're friendly. You're a nice person. You're respectful. And I tell them, we're all like that. What you see on TV and the media, that's a caricature. They only show the bad people. But most of us, you come to our church, we welcome you. We may not be accepting of your lifestyle. And I tell them, sin is sin. But you know what? We love you. We accept you. We want you in our churches. And they're shocked to hear those things. Not that I'm trying to drag them into my church, but I want to clear off the misconceptions because, like you said, they have questions. They're open. But what they see on the media, when they think about church, it's a misconception. And so one of my jobs is, maybe I don't get to share the gospel during this ride, but you know what? I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, and I love you. And that blows their mind.
Yeah. You know, speaking of media and misconceptions, for Canadians here, seeing the climate of California, and still, like myself, you know, understanding that the media is all twisted and whatnot, but it would appear that California is sort of this standalone state that's totally resistive to Christianity. But clearly, you as someone who's been living there and doing ministry for 20 years, this is not true. Can you share with us a little bit about the reality of the climate in California?
The climate is very liberal because I'm in Los Angeles. I'm not in Redding or one of the inward sides. Most of California, if you look on a map, is red in a way. It's conservative. But you're only going to see San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, the big metropolitan areas where there is a more liberal bent. I mean, it's almost indoctrinated to us, not just from the media, but also from our schools, our workplaces. It's like you're supposed to have these pronouns, you have to respect them. And even though you have your own personal beliefs, on the outside, you have to show the more liberal colors. But there are still many people getting frustrated at that, being forced into this liberalism. And so California, we are seeing a shift in which people are fighting back. And they're not all Christians. They're not, stop forcing this ideology on us. Let me make my own decision. Like, I don't know God. I don't care about Jesus, but I want to make my own rules and stop pushing it down my throat. And that's what's been happening over the past 2-3 years. There's been a pushback in California of stop pushing that stuff on me. But before 3 years ago, just even before 3 years ago, it was accepted. We're going to have genderless bathrooms. We're going to have he, her, him, whatever. And even if you don't agree, you can't fight against it. Just go along with the flow. But things changed when President Trump was elected. Things changed when people were getting sick of the over push from the media. And so regular people, yeah, they're open to the gospel, but there is that veneer of misconception, misinformation that's been pushed on them by the media, by just almost swimming. We're swimming in it from work, going to school, everywhere. It's around us. It's not in us. We're not immersed in it, but swimming in it every day. You kind of think Christianity is like this, Jesus is like that. And so that's what we have to cut across.
Right. And, you know, I think it's important, like, for the listeners or the viewers and stuff to understand that just what you had said previous to that is that, you know, Christians, true biblical Christianity is living like Jesus, is loving these people, not necessarily accepting choices and lifestyles and what is actually sin, but loving them and not wanting to force things on people either way, but just to have that harmony and just live together and be open to hear, you know, the truth about Jesus. Mm-hmm. So praise you for your boldness to be living in those type of areas and yet finding a way to actually love people and share the gospel. That's so awesome. Mm. That's so awesome. What's next for you, Jason? Like, you're obviously hugely busy. You're telling me you're doing the Uber occasionally. You're a lead pastor at this church, and you're still doing your Pastor Jason Answers. What's next? What's next for you in the future or in the next several months?
I don't know, but I do know that God has called me to two main things, which is I'm the lead pastor of my church, and so that takes up a lot of my time to care for my sheep, and I have to be faithful to that. And another is the YouTube ministry. It's not so much social media, but here's what I'm getting at. About 2 years ago, I don't usually read a lot of comments on my videos, but I saw one comment saying, I watched your video and I gave my life to Christ. Like, what? What? I mean, that video wasn't even meant for that. I was just talking about the proofs of the Bible or proof of Jesus Christ's resurrection. And I didn't expect someone to actually watch it and become saved. I'm like, whoa, something's going on here. I wasn't even thinking this would happen. This wasn't even the purpose. It was to educate Christians. And I thought, wait, there's something here. There's a lot of people on social media and on the internet who wouldn't walk into a church, and yet they'll watch these videos. And so that's when I purposely made videos about the gospel, actually made a specific video on leading someone to Christ. This is how you get to heaven. This is Jesus. This is the gospel. I mean, pray with me. And then that's how my social media exploded from just about 10,000 subscribers to now over 2 million followers. And so, because people are hungry for the truth, whether it's the truth about medicine or the truth about politics or the truth about COVID and the truth about who God really is. And there are plenty of people out there who've never stepped into a church, and they're hungry for the truth. And what's a greater truth than Jesus Christ? And so, because they're out there, that's when I got really into social media in the past 2 years, really getting out there. I even avoided TikTok for the longest time because I thought TikTok was just people dancing their butts, right? But I thought, you know what? People are on there. People who don't know Christ are on TikTok. So I got to get in there too. And that's my harvest field.
Yeah.
Yes, I still travel to other countries to preach the gospel, but my harvest field that I'm going to reach is the internet, the social media landscape where people will first check out a video before they walk into a church.
Yeah. Amen. And that, you know what, that's the hope of this podcast too, is that, you know, when you don't really want to engage someone in a conversation, because you're afraid of what rabbit hole or where that's going to go. That's the desire of the podcast for Disciple City, right? The podcast is that people have an opportunity to listen to stories like yourself and others of how Jesus became real to them in their own privacy. Nobody knows they're listening. I can't tell they're listening. And just the hope that it moves them. And then they start searching for the truth, right? And God will lead them.
Right.
Jason, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Loved hearing your story today. And friends, as Jason said, he's everywhere on social media, on TikTok, obviously, but Pastor Jason Kim on Instagram, Pastor Jason Answers is on Facebook as well. You can see those Uber videos, and obviously on YouTube, you can... PastorJasonAnswers.org is the website where you can go and check things out further, and see all of those videos and be encouraged and inspired, and maybe hear some answers to questions that you're looking for, and see some of these stories on that he has with these people in these Uber cars. It's so good, Jason. Bro, I had one more question for you.
Yeah.
Jason, and this might be an easy question for you to answer because you're doing it in the Uber, but people are getting in these Uber cars with you, everyday people with all these different stories. But if somebody got in a car with you and it brought you back to where you were as a teenager, where you were hitting rock bottom, and they share with you that they just got kicked out of their house and, you know, they're using substances too and just don't know where to turn. But unlike you, they have no faith background whatsoever. And you have a somewhat lengthy ride. What would you say to them?
I think you could go about it in several different ways, but I'm not here to teach different tactics or techniques. I think people can see through the BS these days because of AI and all the fake stuff that's out there. People crave what's real. So if you go in with a certain agenda, with a certain 7-step of evangelism program, I think they'll see through that and see it as BS. And so what I tell people is just be genuine. Just help people. And they could see that. When you really want to help people, when you're really genuine, they could see that and they appreciate that. And when you start sharing your story, and your story will be different from my story, will be different from somebody else. But I just share about where those connections are, where you can say, I get that. Maybe I wasn't addicted to drugs, but I was addicted to gambling or something. And that addiction held me back. And sharing your story, where you're coming from, and connecting in those areas. And then the thing is, you're also connected to Jesus, and just sharing what's real in your life about Jesus. And you may not have the 7 steps down. You may not know how to exactly share the gospel in this way, but being genuine and sharing your story and how that connects with Jesus, which is what you're doing on your podcast. Regular people with regular stories, and they're different. It's not the same steps that we all have. But when you're genuine with people, whether they're coming from a background that's very different or very similar, there are always places of connection because we're all human beings. We all suffer, we all cry, we all laugh, and we could laugh about the Dodgers and make a connection. We could cry about the last election and make a connection. And in those ways, when you connect with people in real, genuine ways, they want to connect with what you're connected to, which is Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate you. This is a great story today of someone who's going out there. Very profound. I even jotted it down when Jason said that I've not been called to be an evangelist, but I know I'm called to evangelize. And what we want you to know today, friends, is that if you're a Christian and you haven't been, God will give you the words, man. The Holy Spirit will be with you. You're just called to share your faith. Let Him guide you and share your faith. And if you're not a Christian and you've stumbled across this video or this podcast, know that as Christians, as pastors, as we love you, We love you and we accept you, and we just want you to know his truth. And we just say, bless Charlie Kirk's family today.